I invite you to take your Bibles, please, and turn to the third epistle of John. Who is it written to? Gaius. What do you know about Gaius? I know that we talked about the prayer that John prayed on behalf of Gaius, that he would prosper materialistically without sin, but prosper in that regard, because how is he using his money? He was welcoming strangers in, taking care of them, and we'll find that John says you will do well to set them forward on their journey. Because why? Apparently they were preaching the gospel, and they were not taking any money, because for the name of Christ, or the name of God through Christ, was being preached. And by helping them, you will be a helper for the truth. Truth of the gospel is being spread by strangers to Gaius. And what do? You do well if you set them forward on their journey, but we've already seen your love. The church is bearing witness of their love because you have been doing this. Why? Because I think he already was a prosperous man. And because he said, I hope you will prosper as your soul prospers. You see his soul. You see how healthy that is. He's not the rich that has their hope set on God. They're not arrogant, looking down upon others. He opens his heart and receives strangers, showing that type of love. And now you'll do well if you send these men. They are worthy of God. Worthy of God. As if you're worthily of God. That's the way I'm sending you. Giving God speed, which 2 John you're not to do if they don't teach the truth. So that's where we ended up in our lesson last week. And so we begin this week, and we've got a man by the name of Gaius, or Diotrephes, that we're going to be looking at. Diotrephes. You want to be a Diotrephes? Well, many are, apparently. And there's one here. And we're going to see him being talked about. Got Gaius, and then we got Diotrephes, and we've got a third party out here that maybe Gaius ought to look to and realize, there's your example. It's not Diotrephes. So we're asking this question as we begin verse 9 of our letter. What was the fundamental problem with Diotrephes? What's his problem?
Love of preeminence. So bad to be admired, but he had the love of it.
He had the love of that. Okay. Well, that's kind of what he was doing, as you will see. The word is a combination when he speaks about the preeminence. What is that word in the Greek? It's the one that has your love with it. This love of this is what I want to be. I have a love of this, like a love of wisdom. I want to have philosophy. I want to have this. Well, this word has that love in front of it, but the proteo denotes the idea, I'm going to be chief. I'm going to be number one. I love that preeminence. And so an idea is that I'm going to be chief among the rest. And he's in the church. Gaius is there. Gaius is a member of that church, and they're welcoming strangers. So there's a problem with him. Diotrephes that John has to write about. Well, should you call names? Surely you wouldn't write it in an email. Don't you know that will be out there forever? Well, he wrote it in a letter, and it's there forever. And it makes I want you to awaken. We don't call names, but when danger to the well-being of a church or the danger to the salvation of souls, you identify the man with what he's doing, and you're not going to back off that, because that's going to be healthy to whom? Gossipers that just, well, I got some tidbits for you. Let me tell you about that guy. That's not what it's about. It's not about the idea of we don't care about the man. It's the fact that here's what he's doing. It's disrupting things, and he needs to be singled out. Every time in the New Testament that men's names were called, they were being singled out because they're overthrowing the faith of someone or disrupting the harmony in a church, or doing evil things to Paul. You name one of them. And because he was an apostle, and that was dealing with the authority of God. He took a lot that he didn't name. There's false brethren. He didn't name all of them. But he'll pick out one that was a special, probably, and I'm sure it was one that the people he wrote to knew who they were. Beware of them. It's what he said, beware of that fellow. It's always, there's a reason for that. Because how do you know who it is if you don't call them by name? Is a name important? Hang around and we'll get to the last verse and you'll see how important it is. But his name is called, and it is indeed the Diotrephes. And we kind of, I don't want to be a Diotrephes. Now you know what that is. Now, how is his actions different from Gaius? Right up front. Oh, I got it. It's around the word receive. Who is Gaius receiving? Strangers. Oh, well, beware of those strangers. But he knew who they were in the name of the Lord. They haven't been taking any money because of the calls for Christ in his name. So he received them. What Diotrephes do? He did not receive the apostles. He did not receive those who were coming in the name of God. He didn't receive them. That's why they're different. Receive means I'm welcoming in. We can receive them as brethren. We can receive them as teachers of the truth. So I wrote somewhat unto the church, but Diotrephes, who loveth to have the preeminence among them, receiveth us not. As we wrote to the church, here's the authority of the apostle coming, and they didn't receive it. So I'm writing a letter to you, Gaius. And has he achieved being chief in this congregation? He's pretty well succeeded, because he can kick you out. No, you can't kick him out. What everybody else think? I'm preeminent one. And he already had that kind of power. And John, the apostle, is now going to deal with that and do so in a constructive way. But here he appeals to a man that's prosperous. Because you might think that maybe Diotrephes had preeminence because he was maybe rich. He had more money than everybody else. When you have money, you have power. You may have prestige. Who's Gaius? Apparently he's prosperous too. I said, I want you to prosper and be in good health. And when I answer that prayer, it'll be as your soul prospers. Or he was just bold and arrogant and what kind of words did he use? And that's what describe his words. What two characteristics describe his words that he's using about those who have come, first of all, with apostolic teaching, and they didn't want to he's not going to receive that. And so what's his next strategy? When I come, John says, verse 10, I will bring to remembrance his works which he doth, comma. I'm going to describe to you his works. It's his words. He prates against us with wicked words. He prates against it. What does the word prate mean? Doing what? It's foolish talk. That's right. It's just foolishness. Why? It's idle talk. Why? It's not true. It's not true. Just foolishness. But that's what an ungodly person will do. It doesn't make any difference what you say. Maybe it'll stick. And just foolish talk about maybe what these people are, and you can't trust them. Or what we go through Corinthians, and when you see that, some were saying, Paul didn't come straight to us when he said he was going to. Therefore, he's a fickle man. You can't believe what he teaches about Christ. Whoa, what dots are you putting together? It's what I want it to be. He's fickle. He's fickle. You can't trust him. Then they have to realize, I waited to see how you're going to receive my letter before I came, because I don't want to lord it over your faith. I want to be a helper and joy in your faith. What an attitude. What a heart. But does he get credit for having that kind of heart? No. Not when false teachers, not when false brethren, not when false members of the church will want to have their way. They will prate. I've got the wrong, I've looked it up, so it's prate. It's the foolish idle talk, all the idle talk. And when you sum it all up, it's not true. And they're wicked words, aren't they? Foolish talk, wicked words. Well, I thought there's nothing to them. What makes them wicked? Is he indifferent about those words? No. Because what do? They hurt. They hurt. They hurt the cause, because here is messengers of God. Here's one bringing a letter from John, and where they could see the teachings that the Apostle John had. That wasn't even getting in the door. And they're wicked words that brings evil upon those who he's talking about. It hurts their character, it hurts their reputation, rather. And John's not there. But when he comes, he'll remind them of those things in which he has said. And I've always thought, when he comes, who will establish what he said? Well, the people that listen to doctrine, they'll say, yep, he said that. And John had pretty good evidence of he could bring forth exactly what he's been saying. He calls it's foolishness, it's idle, it has no substance to it, but it hurts. It hurts the cause. And that's what he's being called out upon, which is very specific, while still in our ears it's general. I don't know exactly what he said. It's foolish and it hurts. And we can try to make sense of that. And do we see our society, especially in the political world, trying to get rid of somebody? Did they care about if it's true or not? Do they check it out to see there's a context of that? No, they find something, they take things out of its context, they'll use that to destroy a person. That's foolish and wicked words. And it's the way the devil works, to bring forth destruction to good people or good causes, and especially the things of God. All right, any comments on prating and wicked? There's the words that indeed he is using. Okay. Question number 4, how did Diotrephes try to secure having his way in the church? So he has his way. So how does he go about making that, showing how powerful he was? That's right. He's not just content about not receiving the brethren, but he says, in them that would, he forbiddeth. Tracy, you don't have to receive him, but we'll take him into our home today. No, he won't do that. And you're not going to do that. And what happens if you do? And that's the point that's given. That's the final thing he can do. He'll cast them out of the church. He must have been real strong and burly man. He could just kick them out of the church building. Is that what he's doing? He may have. Take them out. But what we're probably doing is says, we're going to ostracize you from the fellowship of our brethren in this local family of God. You're not worthy. According to whom? Me, Dr. Feast. And apparently he had that kind of influence. And maybe from money, maybe from power, maybe he was just a smooth talker and one that people had a lot of, honored him a lot. I don't think this was something that just came up in his character. And if this was part of his character, who wants to be influenced by him? I think he had power and prestige, maybe through money, which gives people power and prestige in our time, even regardless of their character. We don't look at that too much. But he had that ability to do that. And he is just an individual man. He's just an individual. But who's going to stop him? Who's going to do that? And apparently he felt confident that no one would stop him. And that's usually the falling down. You think you're so smart, you think you're so wise, you think you're so popular, and that pride hits you, and it comes right before what? You fall. And we don't. This is a very short letter, but that's what he's doing. So Gaius is being called upon maybe to stop that. And you keep trying, Gaius, because I'm coming. John is going to be to come to them, and you know, at this time you had miraculous powers in the apostles. Paul could say, "I'm going to come with a rod," or I can come in love. It'll be depending on how the Corinthians would receive his letters, and all of that would take place. So, could Apostle use his powers that God gave him to maybe strike him blind? Has he done that before? When someone was trying to take people away from the truth of the gospel, like a man by the name of Bar Jesus Elymas, and the proconsul who was seeking the truth, Elymas was sitting there in the way of that. And what did Paul do? You, child of the devil, you're a devil. And you're perverting the right ways of the Lord. And God brought a mist on his eyes at the command of Paul, and he was blind for a season. And how strong are you when they have to kind of lead him about? That was humiliating. Paul could do that. John could too. And there was that kind of power. Do I have to show you that kind of power and the authority comes from God? Because God will do that. And so when we think, oh, God just healed people, he did miracles. Yeah, he did miracles, and it was for healing and making people whole. But there's an occasion in the New Testament where on a little small island, that's exactly what he did as he was going through Cyprus and having to deal with those who were in the way of the truth. And because why? I'm showing the apostolic power that I'm coming from God. And he would strike them blind, and he said some pretty straightforward things that you shouldn't talk to people like that in our society. But it's the truth, and it was a time where you had to deal with the barrier in a very straightforward way. And to show that it wasn't a man just standing before them, but they were standing in the way of God. In the first century, as the gospel was being set forth and revealed in letters, that authority was being established. And the apostles had that. And so John, when he comes, I don't think Diotrephes would have stood the test much longer. But the point is that he's calling on Gaius. that maybe Gaius has some type of authority in that church, a prestige, maybe because he's been a prosperous man. Now I want him to keep prosperous because his heart's right. Diotrephes is not. And we're kind of reading between the lines, but we're reading the lines. But all we know here is that he forbids that, and he casts them out of the church, and apparently he's gotten away with it. And that needs to be corrected. And that's exactly what we're going to find that is going to happen. So now we're introduced to another man. And our question number 5, where does good originate? So let's just notice here what we find in Demetrius. Beloved, is he writing to Gaius, and he says this word over and over again in this short letter. He's beloved, he's worthy of love, he's close to, I'm close to you, and he loves his soul, he loves his spirit, loves his life. He said, beloved, imitate not that which is evil, but that which is good. He that doeth good is of God. He that doeth evil hath not seen God. Now he lays the principle, and then he's going to give a real life example. He didn't give an example, and that's, well, he's kind of, let's just talk about the principle. He wants the principle. Here's what it's all about. Now I'm going to fill in someone that you might want to look at for a good example to follow. I think the order is significant. It doesn't mean you could go the other way, but it wasn't about promoting men. It's about promoting the truth of God. And so he says that I want you to imitate, I want you to follow after that which is of a moral character. It's either evil or it's what? It's good. Now, what is interesting is that good can cover a lot of territory, can it? You may have been and maybe are married to a good man. That can mean a lot of things. A good man. It could mean in some sort, he goes shopping with me anytime I want to. He's a good man. Whoa. Well, he's a good man. He got good moral character. Doesn't run around on me. Doesn't do all this bad stuff. He's a good man. Or old man can look at a young man and say, boy, he's a good man, like strong. It can be very general. And the Greeks had two words, primarily two words, and you'll see both of them in the short epistle of Titus. And when you read the context read those, you'll pick up. Some things are good in their character. Just, that's good. For example, when God created the heavens, the earth, and every time he created on each day, he saw that it was what? Good. It's good, it just stands as being good in its being. It may be the firmament, it may be the plants, it may be man, it's good. And at the end of all of his creation, he said, it is very good, didn't he? That word, that's Hebrew, but we bring it over to the Greek, things are just good. Prove all things, 1 Thessalonians 5, and cleave to that which is what? Good. Good in character. Why? Because I proved it by what standard? The Word of God. You have to have a standard. We're dealing with a moral issue here, good and evil, and something I can imitate. But he doesn't use that word here for good. He could have. But he wanted to imitate good actions. Not something that's good in its being. It's just good in its being. That's his character. It's a flower. It's a man. It's an animal. Just the way I wanted it. It's good. Good. But there is the other Greek word, and you'll find that in Titus, where it is dealing with, it is good in its effects. It's put into practice. It's good. because it's beneficial. And what needed to be set forth in this church that Gaius was a member of, and apparently Diotrephes and Demetrius, or if he's not the one that's coming to visit them, but in the sense that it is because it's how we apply that which is to be good in character, and it's good in character. It is beneficial in its effect. That's kind of a thing that I bring in both Greek words that are dealing with good. So, do not evil, but do that which is good. 1 Thessalonians 5 brings that one in. You're doing what is beneficial to others. And that surely was needed, because Diotrephes is keeping people from the word. He's casting people that don't deserve to be cast out of the church. He's forbidding people to practice hospitality to strangers. That's bad. That's bad. And he's insisting, my way. That's the way it's going to be. That's not beneficial to the group. And that's the good he uses. That's the word that he's using, that which is beneficial to the people. You follow after that which is good. I can imitate that because I see it in action. I didn't have to prove it by the word of God. Well, that's good. That can be good, and that's where we start. But it's practical. It's practicing it out. And so I can follow that. And who's going to stand in there that might help me if I'm Gaius? Demetrius. He comes next. But you imitate that which is good and beneficial to, in this case, the group and to others. Was he being beneficial to the people that come to him? He received them. You're going to get kicked out of the church. I may do it, but I'm going to do it. And maybe he was one that was standing up to Diotrephes that, well, you can cast me out if you want to, but that's what I'm going to do. And then what John is doing in this letter, giving him strength, you will do well to send them on their journey. For an idea of taking care of their needs, supplying their goods, spending your money and helping them as they set you forward on your journey. You know, they didn't have a place to go get a hamburger down the road. They lived in a different time. And so he was doing that with what he had that was beneficial to people. But it all originates somewhere. And I say all that because where do you think good originates for our standard? And then I know that this is beneficial, therefore it's good. By whose standard? God's standard. You add a O to God, and what do you have? Don't misspell it. You have good. Because he's the one that's originated good. And I think we indicate that in our language. Well, that's kind of where it comes from. But he has the standard, and he has, if it's a benefit to people, because we can be doing good to our brethren when we rebuke them for their sin, and then forgive them when they repent. But rebuking sin, and John is definitely calling this man out. But now we're looking at that good side of good, and realize here's how it originates. Now, this fill in the blank. What is it? How'd you fill that one in? He that doeth what? So we're looking at the negative side of this. He that doeth evil hath not what? Well, join the club. Nobody's seen God. That's what my Bible said. Nobody's seen him. Jesus declared him, explained him to us, but we've never seen God. What do you think he means by hath not seen God? What does that mean? Because I know no one has seen God. You had to, well, knowing God, knowing His Word, I've seen Him with the enlightenment of my eyes because I know His truth, so there's knowledge there. I'm not in a proving relationship with Him. I don't see what He really is, a holy, righteous, merciful, caring, loving God. Apparently you haven't seen God, because where does good come from? God. You hadn't seen Him. You hadn't seen God. And how, well, we find out what Jesus declared: if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. And you begin to see the truth of God. He didn't hide His truth. He's revealed it to us in His Word. So if I'm doing that which is harmful, doing that which is in its character is evil, and in its effects it's harmful, and I think, would you say Dr. Feast is doing that? He's casting people out there innocent. He's telling people who want to show love, you can't. He's not receiving the authority of God through His apostles and the messengers. That's not beneficial to anybody except a man who says, I have the preeminence. Do you see the wisdom of God establishing leadership in a church with a plurality of men called elders? Elders that have all the qualities and the characteristics, would you respect them? That when you read about them in the Bible? Yeah. And what happens is that maybe one can go at all course. I know of a church that Kathy and I were a member when we first married. It ended in a disaster. It was a very strong church, and I had a lot of young people, and we were having our babies and all those things happening during that time. And things went south with teaching, but he didn't get fired. This man did. He was a preacher, but he's also an elder. After we had to leave, became an elder. And all of the false teaching that he did, all the brethren accepted that, and the other elders accepted that. But the thing he did was decide things. He decided one thing, announced to the church, and it was all him. He never took it to the other elders to consider. He got fired as a preacher, and he's no longer an elder there, because he unilaterally said, I can do this. And he did that. A pride and arrogancy that comes with, I got by with this, or they're looking up to me, they'll do exactly what I have to say. Sometimes you go off the wrong, you take the wrong step, but here again, we're a plurality of men. They didn't like it, because all of them were to be working together. So he was fired as a preacher, and he's fired as an elder, I guess. He's no longer in their leadership there, and he had to leave amongst them. But there's the downfall of people. But God, when it says He appointed elders, plural, in every church, we sometimes people just we could have, who's your pastor? Well, what's the word pastor in our New Testament? Who is it identifying with? The evangelist or the elders? The elders. You read Acts 20. Here were the elders. They were men of age, and prestige comes along with that. Experience comes along with that. People can look up to them and follow their ways, and they have that going for them. They're men of age. They're not to be novices, like newly planted Christians. They had to have experience. When you look at the qualifications in Timothy and Titus. So you have that, but they're overseers, and they're their shepherds, plural, shepherds of the flock. And there's the wisdom of God. If you're going to have in leadership, there was at least that area where here was a group of men working together, not unilaterally, because they were going to lead them in the right way. And is that wise in corporate America? Well, I'm CEO. I can do what I want to. Sometimes that can be a disaster. And it's nice to have, you have to have one that has authority, but a lot of times they can do things because they're not looking at getting advice from others before they make their decisions, and it can become disastrous, and it won't work any longer. What they've been wanting to do, and their business falls, a lot of times because of arrogance. But the idea of knowing God, seeing God, really seeing who He is, because you're doing exactly what a holy, loving, merciful, caring God can't do. And therefore that becomes important to understand. What threefold testimony stood behind the good character of Demetrius? Now we bring him in. And boy, is he worthy to follow. Why? Why? Demetrius hath a what? He has a testimony of just a few? Everybody. That's pretty powerful. Just stop there. No, we're not going to stop there. Because the multitude can think you're wonderful, and you're not. But he does have that leadership quality. He has something to follow that's worthy of following, because all people speak well of him. He has the witness, the testimony of all men. And of what? The truth itself. Truth is standing outside, and it's bringing forth a witness. I got men who agree with this, and the truth is consistent with the truth itself. And I got one more. And what is it? We also, I think we apostles, we also bear witness, and our witness is what? It's true. He just lays it out on the line. You know that. And so here's all these idle, foolish words prated against him. It's not true at all. Our witness is true because it's been tested and proven. They were apostles. There was outside of ourselves was truth itself. And there were people whose witnessed it in action. That's a pretty powerful character of a man. And he says, if you want to imitate someone, not Dr. Fees, yes, but since your soul is prospering, I think you'll fit right in. Just keep Demetrius in your mind. He has a good reputation everywhere. You test his life with the truth that's been revealed from God, and we're telling you, he's a worthy man to follow. I had many things to write unto thee, but I'm unwilling to write them now with what? Ink and pen. They were papyrus, had their ink and their pens to, we see, maybe it's a quill, all those things, but with ink and pen. But I hope shortly to see thee, and we shall speak, how? We'll speak face to face. Right there, we're not going to have to be writing on paper and ink. He said, peace be unto thee. The friends salute thee. Salute the friends by what? What does that mean? What does that create in your heart about? Salute your friend. Hey, all my friends. Hey, hi. Salute them by what? By name. Give my salutation, my greetings to them. Everyone is important. Everyone has a distinctive place. And I want you to greet them by name. That I'm going to be coming. The friends salute thee. And so that was pretty general. He knew who was with him maybe. But you salute the friends by name. Identify them because they're distinct people. Just like Gaius, Diotrephes, and Demetrius are distinct people. And everyone is important to this story and the thing that's happening. So that's the end of our study of John. We're going to pick up two short epistles. In the foyer you have the introduction to Philemon. I added to that some things about slavery in the Old Testament and the New Testament to kind of get your mind set, how does that relate to slavery issues that divided our country and what makes slavery so evil and so forth. And by the way, is slavery continuing today? Yeah, in a lot of different ways. So that part is there. It's just to kind of get our minds, it's grounded in the Bible, because we're going to pick up a little short epistle of Philemon of a runaway slave, and how God directing Paul through Paul how to write to Philemon. It was his slave. And we'll get in there, and then we'll pick up with Jude. So we got 2 short epistles, and then we're going to go to the book of Acts. So that kind of give you a heads up of where we're heading. And these lessons will be online, where if you pick it up today, you can get it real soon. Thank you.